John Wycliffe, Morningstar of Reformation, 1324 to 1384. John Wycliffe trained the poor preachers who lived a simple life and travelled around the countryside teaching the word of God to the common folk of England in their own tongue. John Wycliffe was responsible for the very first translation of the entire Bible into the English language. He is called the father of prose because the clarity and the popularity of his writings and his sermons in the Middle English dialect did much to shape our language today. One of the Shakespeare's greatest comic characters, Sir John Falstaff, was based on an English knight who was follower of Wycliffe and who died a martyr death. One pope issued 5 bulls against John Wycliffe for heresy. The Catholic Church in England tried him 3 times and 2 popes summoned him to Rome. But Wycliffe was never imprisoned nor ever went to Rome. Although his English followers called Lollards and Wycliffes were persecuted and practically disappeared from England, John Wycliffe's influence on Bohemians influenced the great Protestant Reformation of early 16th century. In 14th century, Oxford was Europe's most outstanding university and John Wycliffe was its leading theologian and philosopher. John Wycliffe's patron, protector, and John Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, was also a patron of Geoffrey Chaucer. Both the preacher and the poet worked in the Duke's service at one time in their lives. The writings of John Hus, the Bohemian reformer, which got him condemned and burned at the stake, depended heavily on translation and adaptations of tracts, treatises, and sermons by John Wycliffe. The Wycliffe translation of Bible was made from Latin language, handwritten manuscript of translation 1,000 years old, and before any verse numbers had been assigned. With all his questioning of the doctrines of the church and his criticism of corruption of the clergy, John Wycliffe was excommunicated, nor did he ever leave the church, but in fact he suffered his fatal stroke while at the Mass. Even John Wycliffe died peacefully at home in bed on New Year's Eve. Church exhumed his body 44 years later, burned his bones and scattered the ashes in nearby river. At the Diet of Worms in 1521, Martin Luther was accused of renewing the errors of Wycliffe and Hus by making scriptures his final authority. The monument shows Wycliffe preaching to villagers with his back to 2 other figures who may be intended to represent mendicant friars in objection to his ministry.